What's the problem with tunnels? They usually take a very long time to build, and they're very expensive. So typically a tunnel will take 3 to 6 months per mile. In some cases, it will take a year per mile, and they can cost up to $1 billion per mile. In fact, the LA subway extension that just got completed cost $2 billion for 2.5 miles. There was a subway extension in New York that I think cost $2 billion for a mile. So clearly something needs to be done to revolutionize tunneling technology. We need to be able to build tunnels way faster and for a hell of a lot less money. So the loop that we're talking about consists of autonomous electric vehicles, the combination of autonomous electric vehicles with deployable guide wheels so that it braces itself against the side of the tunnel so that it's safe even if the car loses power or even if somebody goes crazy or there's like a mechanical failure. Those guide wheels keep the car centered in the tunnel and ensure that you can go through the tunnel very fast and still be safe. Then in terms of stations, these are the intent here is to have many more stations than you'd have in a subway. So at least 10 or 20 times more stations than you'd have with a subway. This is also very important because then you can intersperse the stations throughout the city and not dump a ton of traffic in one location. There's very tiny threads that are about a tenth, roughly, of the cross-sectional area of a human hair. So they're extremely tiny threads. In fact, the threads that we have, like I said, even in version 1, are about the same size as a neuron. So if you're going to go stick something in your brain, you want it to not be giant, you want it to be tiny, and to be approximately on par with the things that are already there, the neurons. So this is about the size of a neuron, each thread. And then you really need this to be done with a robot because it's very tiny and it needs to be very precise. So you don't want to pierce a blood vessel. So so each thread, the robot looks sort of basically through a microscope and inserts each electrode specifically, bypassing any vasculature, any kind of like blood vessel, and making sure so it can be inserted without causing trauma or minimal trauma. So each chip, which is 4 by 4 millimeters, is capable of 1,000 electrodes, or has 1,000 electrodes, and we think doing up to 10 is feasible. So this is in contrast to the best FDA-approved system, which is like a Parkinson's deep brain stimulation thing, which would have on the order of 10 electrodes. So the system, even in version 1 that we're going to unveil today, is capable of 1,000 times more electrodes than the best system out there, and they're all read and write. So this is really quite, I mean, for something to be 1,000 times more than what is publicly approved is quite a big difference.
Becoming a multi-planet species beats the hell out of being a single planet species. So, so we'd start off by sending a mission to Mars, where it would be obviously just landing on rocky ground or dusty ground. And it's the same approach that I mentioned before, which is you send the spaceship up to orbit, you retank it or refill it until it has full tanks, it travels to Mars, lands on Mars. For Mars, you will need local propellant production. But Mars has a CO2 atmosphere and plenty of water ice. That gives you CO2 and H2O, so you can make, therefore, CH4 and O2. Land on Mars, where the atmosphere is too thin to land, even if there were runways to land with a wing, you really have to get propulsive landing perfect. So that's what we've been practicing with Falcon 9. Particularly with 6 ships, there have plenty of landed mass to construct the propellant depot, which will consist of a large array of solar panels, very large array, and then everything necessary to mine and refine water, and then draw the CO2 out of the atmosphere, and then create and store deep cryo CH4 and O2. Then build up the base, starting mostly with one ship, then multiple ships, then start building out the city, then making the city bigger, even bigger, and and over time terraforming Mars and making it really a nice place to be. Quite a beautiful picture. And on the prior slide, it's interesting to note that on Mars, dawn and dusk are blue, and it's the sky. So the sky is blue in dawn and dusk, and red during the day. It's the opposite of Earth.